All right, we're recording. We'll be with you in a minute. We're just waiting for everyone to come on and log on. Whenever you're ready, Jennifer.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Fall Art Program, Selling Happily Ever Afters, Secrets from the Romance Book Slingers. I'm Jennifer Smakopoulos, a member of the Adult Reading Roundtable Steering Committee. Before we get started, on behalf of ART, I want to thank Rails for hosting us via Zoom and recording the event. It will be available both on the Rails website and artreads.org. ART is dedicated to developing readers' advisory skills and promoting reading for pleasure. In addition to RE training programs like this one, we host in-depth genre studies and book discussion trainings. Join us on December 2nd to discuss travel and adventure, the next topic in our nonfiction genre study. Visit artreads.org to learn more about our organization, sign up for our newsletter, find upcoming events, and view program recordings. During the session, use the Q&A for panelist questions, and we'll get to those at the end. And now I'll turn it over to Monique Flash, our moderator for this afternoon.
Hi, everybody. Welcome. Let me do this so I can read it properly here. Okay, I'm Monique Flash, a member of the Adult Reading Roundtable Steering Committee and a librarian and reader's advisor from the Glenview Public Library. And in my past was an assistant manager at Borders Bookstore. I've been a romance reader since my neighbor and I borrowed Gothic romances from her adult babysitter. For fun, I host a small private FB group for librarians called Romance in the Stacks, and I will be your moderator for our talk today. Thanks everybody for taking the time to come, and thanks to our panelists. I'm going to do this alphabetically. We have, because you know how it is with Zoom, you're never sure who's on your right, left, etc. We have Roseann Backlin, who is the co-owner with her daughter of their business, Love's Sweet Arrow, a romance-focused bookshop in the Chicago suburb of Tinley Park, and it's been open since 2019. Edna Castillo is a senior bookseller at Barnes & Noble Arboretum in Austin, Texas for about 14 years. Previously was at Borden Books and at the Farm Memorial Library, and she does sales for author book events with her company, Edna's Emporium. Leah Koch and her sister are the owners of the Ripped Bodice in Culver City, California, which opened on March 4th, 2016, following a very successful Kickstarter campaign to bring their dream of a romance-only bookstore to life, and I believe the first in the US. They grew up in Chicago, Illinois, so we will claim them as local town people. And they are the originators of the Ripped Bodice State of Racial Diversity and Romance Report. And we've got a lot of stuff to go through today. Hopefully some of the terminology may be a little different from what librarians are used to, and hopefully we'll explain it as we go along. But we're here to have fun and talk about one of our favorite topics, romance, and learning how to give romance to readers. Some basic questions, and we'll start with Leah because you guys were the first. How did you know you wanted to sell romance?
Hello, thanks for having me. I absolutely am still a Chicagoan, so I'll claim that, even though I haven't lived there in a long time. I started reading romance when I was about 12-ish, and mainly because my older sister, B, who I own the store with, was reading romance, as many people find it, but we didn't come from a romance household. She really got into romance from bookstores and libraries. Huge reading household, but our mom was not really into romance, but she also did not, to a certain extent, regulate really what we read. Obviously, I assume she would have stepped in if it was something crazy, but she didn't care. And so B started, and then I started. And, from there, when we were, both getting ready to leave school, undergraduate for me and graduate for B, and talking about what we wanted to do and sort of came up with the idea for the store, it just seemed like, a natural fit. And at that point, we didn't know that there weren't any other romance bookstores in the country. We just assumed that there were, and we didn't know about them. Turned out there weren't. And at that point, I think we got really excited about the idea because it felt like this huge hole that we could fill and that people would be really excited about. And here we are almost, we've been open almost 6 years now.
Congratulations on that, especially for independent bookstores nowadays. Rosalind, what about you guys? Why did you just decide to open the store?
Well, let's see. First, we bought from the Bodice because they were the only place that you could buy what you wanted, because Barnes and Noble didn't always have what you wanted, or Borders. Sorry, Edna.
Totally understand that.
And we, you know what, it was about 4 years ago, and the lottery, I tell this story and people are like, seriously, it was like $1 billion. And so we're like, oh my God, if we won that, we would open a romance bookstore. You know what I mean? Because we would be billionaires and we could put every single book in the store that we wanted. And well, we didn't win the lottery. But by the end of the summer, you just start thinking about it. And so I said, look, if we're going to do it, we're going to do it. So we did.
Excellent.
Yeah. Mhm.
Edna, why romance? There's a lot of other stuff in the store.
Romance has always been, but it started because my aunt, who I lived with for the last 16 years before she passed, was a romance reader. She gave me my first romance, a hardback, leather-bound called The Floor. It was about a nurse dealing with a patient who was blind, and she became his 24-hour nurse. And it was set in France. And so I remember that book, and I still have it packed away as I moved from my aunt's house into my own apartment. So I haven't brought it out. And then I went to Girl Scout camp and I needed a book, and she had Hearts Aflame by Joanna Lindsay. So that book got passed around to all the counselors, and they were all like, do you have anything else? And I said, no, this is all I snagged off her table. So I started reading romance mainly because of my aunt, because nobody else was a reader in my family. My dad played sports. My mother was a housewife, and she worked outside of the home, but still, it wasn't a reading household. My aunt was, and she was the first one who gave me my first book. And I was a fan of Joanna Lindsay until the day she no longer graced us. And I could have conversations when I got hired at the library with the customers, with our guests, because they were all always asking for new ones. And one of my coworkers, who was a children's librarian, said, you and all these people just talk about them as they're real people, and you're having conversations like you've gone to their ball, you've gone to their mansion. I go, when you read it, that's how it feels. And so we could talk about the Mallorys, and they were our favorites. So we would talk about all of them. And so that's how it evolved. And I started reading Harlequin because she gave me a subscription. And I got hooked with Julie Miller, who does Harlequin Intrigue. And okay, I will admit, I stalked her at RT in LA because that was the first time I met her. So I have read all her books, especially about the Taylors. And I'm like, so when are you going to do the children on this character? They should be old enough. And so that's how I did it. I wanted to be a bookseller for as long as I could remember. When I moved to Austin, when I left my library job, I moved to Austin and I got hired at Barnes and Noble. So that is how my career began, and totally enjoy it.
We've all seen statistics on who the romance reader is, but you guys are all from different parts of the country. Who do you think your customer is? And if you have what we would call surprising outlier customers, who do you think those are too? Leah?
Yeah, I think it's much more diverse than I was expecting. We are in Los Angeles, like right in the heart of LA. So, in terms of race, socioeconomic status, and age, it's very, very, very diverse. I would say it's probably like 90% female. We get a fair amount of men. I also feel like the longer we exist, the more that the men of Los Angeles know that this is a good place to shop for, perhaps women in their lives, if not for themselves. But we also have a large LGBTQ section, so we get plenty of men there as well. But I would say, if I had to nail it down, I would say our average customer is a woman around 30, in a professional career with some amount of disposable income. I also find we get a lot of people who are returning to reading for pleasure. I meet people all the time who are coming out of college or graduate programs, or even just a difficult career, and say something like, I haven't really read what I've wanted to read in a long time, and I want to get back to that.
Yeah, the fun part of it. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. No, we have that too with our patrons and stuff. They've gotten out of the academic mode, and especially in consequence, because of things happening recently in world events and the pandemic, people want that fun. Roseann, what about you guys?
Well, I guess it's pretty much varied as well. I think probably only 5% of our customers are male, but most of the customers lately have been mothers and daughters.
Oh, great.
Yes, especially coming out after the pandemic. I feel like they're like getting together and going shopping, and this is where they come, which is fabulous. So yeah, I would say probably 30 to 45 is more of my range, I think. Yeah, but for joy, people are definitely doing it for joy because they just want to do something for themselves. Yeah.
That's a great way to put it.
Mhm.
Edna, what have you observed?
Well, we have the whole gamut because we have all those that live in rural areas who make the trip into town, and they come in armed with their list. And if we don't have it, they'll have me order it and have it shipped to them at home. So, and there are a lot of men who did do that. I will say this much. The store in Alaska is the #1 store in the company for Barnes and Nobles to sell romance. And it is the men who are the buyers because they're out there doing the job. So it is the #1 store in the country to sell romance.
Oh, that's
My
fantastic.
My friend Thomas lived up there for 2 years because his sister was getting her PhD in a project. So she had to move to Alaska, Anchorage, I think. And he said that the men would come in and they would buy the big bags, spend $300-400, and then they would read the books. He goes, we had the prepaid orders that you're not allowed to have. He goes, because we sold them. And Heather, I think you've met Heather, Monique, she's an ASM from Delaware. She said, my goal is to beat Alaska. And I'm like, good luck, because we're already there. But I would say right now the age has been about 30 to 50. And they are reading everything. They are reading Kristen Fian. They are reading Colleen Hoover. They are reading Jennifer Armitage. They are reading everybody. But when Bridgerton came out, they wanted everything. Who writes like her? So I sold a lot of Lisa, sold a lot of Eloisa, sold a lot of Beverly, sold a lot of Grace. We sold a lot of things that we wouldn't sell a lot, that 1 or 2 over a 3 or 4 month period. But right after Bridgerton, all our authors had a big going out, and everybody enjoyed that. So I'd be in the kids department and I'd get a call over the headset, Edna, where are you? I'm in kids shelving. I'll go shelve. I don't know anything about this romance. Come over here. I'm over here. So we would do that. And when Stacey Abrams' books were re-released, I ordered them, and I'm on my 5th or 6th time reordering them because they are selling as her Selena Montgomery pen name. So started off of let's help raise money for her organization, and they just started coming in, and we were selling them as they came in.
Excellent.
Had our luck there.
You kind of touched on it for your coworker, and I'm going to flip it back to Leah. Just because it's a smaller store, hand selling. Hand selling is the art of, getting a person right to the book and placing it in their hand, and hopefully they're going to walk out of the store with it. Do you guys have, it's a 101 of book selling. Do you guys have a favorite technique? Do you see people who are reluctant to approach you because of the romance factor, especially in the specific stores? What say you, Leah?
Yeah, I think we try to eliminate that as much as possible. And again, I think the longer we've been open, the less that happens. Pretty much when someone walks in the store, we're trying to gauge, like, do they want help? Do they not want help? And obviously we're happy to leave them alone if they don't. But I have found that most people want help, and that's why they're there, because presumably they know that we are experts in this. All of my booksellers do it a little bit differently, but I have kind of like a little mini interview that I'll give people depending on how chatty they seem. But I really want to get a little bit of information, especially if they're new to romance, because you really only get one shot. And if they don't like it, then they've written off romance forever, unfortunately. So I'm typically going to ask somebody, what else do you like to read? And that way try to gauge if they would want contemporary, historical, or paranormal, because, if somebody hates anything fantasy, obviously you're not going to want to give them a paranormal romance novel. They're not going to like that. And if somebody, is bored by history, again, like, you're not going to want to give them a historical romance novel. So that's question number one. And then question number two, I'll generally try to gauge what kind of spice level they're comfortable with. Again, we tend to skew a little bit younger. And so most people are pretty much fine with most things. But, if someone says, I'm buying something for my grandmother, that would be relevant information to have. And then, we're just trying to, my rule of thumb is generally we choose 3 books off the shelf to give somebody. And to have a little bit of variety. Let's say if somebody wants, somebody's new to romance, they just kind of want a general contemporary. I'll do something, super modern, like Get a Life, Chloe Brown by Talia Hibbert, which appeals to many, many people. And then maybe something a little more classic, like a Nora Roberts. That tends to work.
Okay, so that brings up the another question that was going to come up. We'll combo them. So Roseann, you hand selling and spice level. What's your technique?
Well, I guess with hand selling, I start, of course, like Leah does, with questions. What have you read before? What do you like? And then we'll go to each section, and I'll say these are books that people have been looking for recently. And then like Leah said, we'll make a stack. And if it's something that I've read, then of course it's easier to hand sell, just because I haven't read many books that I don't like. I know people are picky about that, but I like them all. So yeah, so with hand selling, it's just what are they looking for? If they've been to the store before, if they're new to the store, who have they read before, things like that. Yeah. And spice level, yeah, sometimes that's harder. Yeah.
It's a delicate conversation.
Yeah, that's a cool conversation. Like, I won't, there are some books that start off really, really spicy. And so I might not put those out there the first time. Let's see what they're looking for first, and then their spice level. But yeah. Yep.
Edna?
Well, again, like everybody else, ask what they like to read. Or if they come in, well, my friend recommended this. And I'm like, right now, everybody's going on the Colleen Hoover thing. And a couple of my coworkers are like, no, not new. But then they all agree on Verity. So I'm like, okay, give me your ops as to why you like Verity, why you don't like Verity. And a customer was overhearing our conversation. And she's like, okay, where do I find that book? You all make it sound very interesting. So Kalana, who had read the book and loved it, said, let me take you to this table over here and let me show you all the other books. She goes, if you want historical, then you need Edna because she's read all of them and she's met some of them. And I said, yes. And she goes, well, wouldn't it be nice if you met Julia Quinn? And I said, I can say yes, I've met her twice. And she started laughing. I said, I met her at RT and I met her at the HHR, which was in Davenport, at the Davenport, when they had it in Washington. So that's where I met Julia again for the second time. And I said, yes, she's very nice, very down to earth. Just what you see is what you get. And she's like, oh. And she goes, besides the Bridgertons, I go, my favorite are the Smith-Smite books. And so I showed her those and she's like, what else has she written? She read them. She came back and I showed her the Splendid. She took all of those. So I heard today, I got a text message. Who else do you recommend? She was back in today. And I'm like, send her to Eloisa or send her to Lisa because we don't have the other ones because they haven't come in yet. She's like, oh, okay. So they sent her on with the Ravenels, which I totally love, the Ravenels by Lisa Kleypas. So
I'm going to jump in on some of the terminology you're using. Art, when we refer to RT, we're referring to Romantic Times magazine used to have a conference every year. That is no more. And HRR, if I remember correctly, it's Historical Romance Retreat.
That is correct.
And I believe they're still going post-pandemic, and they were had them on the West Coast, and I'm not sure if they're moving it around. But I do know that they're trying post-pandemic to make more of those. Always a good time to meet your romance reader, as a reader, meet your authors, so to speak. I'm going to jump
can I
Oh,
say
sure,
one
go
more
ahead.
thing about spice level and asking people, what they're comfortable with. You set the tone. So, if you're embarrassed, they will be embarrassed. So we try, it's not a big deal, it's very, and I think people are often surprised how, level-headedly we ask them things like, how do you feel about bondage? And because the less we make it this embarrassing taboo thing, they're like, oh, I'm not really interested in that. Or, oh, that sounds interesting.
Yes.
So I've just found that the more, it's just, this is a part of being a human. Exactly. This is just part of being a human. Like, are you interested in reading about sex? And if not, that's fine. And if yes, also fine.
Yeah, no, it can be challenging for librarians as well. When 50 Shades is probably the biggest one that hit, and you'd have little old ladies asking for that, and you were just kind of like, oh, okay, what part, having been a bookseller and what have you, I was just like, okay, well, really curious as well. Like, what part of that do you care for? Because if it was the sexuality factor, we could go down that road. And, it was very interesting to figure out what everybody's points were with that particular title. And I find that happens, and we can go into it maybe later. Why are you, again, like you said, why are you reading this and how professional you are? And someone said to me, oh, I like this book. And I said, well, that's an MM and male, for those who don't know. Or, and someone's like, oh, okay. And sometimes they've just heard about the book. They don't know the book. And I said, is that a focus, or you just want a really good romance story? And it's very interesting. I think this is just for me, I think, and you guys may agree, jump in. I think romance readers are probably the biggest group of acceptance readers. They will accept a bit of fantasy. They will accept a bit of mystery. They will accept a bit of this, that, and the other thing. And they will even accept stories where people die at the end if they have to, but they prefer the happy ever after. But I think they are more looking for just that pure story a lot of times. So yeah, that's real interesting. And I agree. I think and that's the hardest part, I think, for people who don't know about romance who are not comfortable with recommending romance, and probably because they haven't read it themselves, is, and I think that's just a great point. The more professional you are, the more straight off it comes. Let's see. What are your tips for keeping up? The way romance today has been colliding, and there's more media, not super duper, but more media on them. How are you keeping up with hand selling besides asking coworkers, besides, are there specific sites that you go to or specific people you read, besides just the Baker and Taylor and Ingram catalogs?
Oh,
Who wants
well,
to, I'll least book lab. I'm going to start with Roseann.
okay.
Um, gosh, I don't know. Marissa is the person that's into the whole Edelweiss, and that's where everything you can find out what's coming up.
Mhm.
So usually once a month, she's there researching it. I'm more of a following on social media. And whenever I see a book, I'm like, oh, that looks good. So I take a picture. And then when I get to the store, I look at it and see if that's something that I think people will like. So for me, it's just kind of hit or miss. Reading the ARCs, if the ARC comes onto the Kindle, because Marissa is really good about getting them, and it looks good, then I'll read it. And if I read it and I like it, which of course I like a lot of the books, I already said that, you'll find it in the store. So that's how I do it. Yeah.
Anybody like in your circle of folks, if they recommend something, you automatically think you need to take a look at it, even if it's not necessarily for you, but for the customers.
Oh yeah. 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 We're good friends with Jen Prokop. So
Mhm.
whenever she puts out something, we always we talk to her a lot. So, and the Fated Mates, I think they just came out with their best reads of the year. So you look through that list and go, okay, well, we sold all those books, so we're right on the mark. Woo-hoo. Yeah, yeah.
Same question, Edna. What are you
Well,
guys following?
I follow, I follow personal pages. I follow Kathy Maxwell because she lives down here. I follow Tracy Wolf because she's another local author. Abigail Owens, who writes under Abigail Owens, she writes fantasy. So I follow her personally, know her, have worked with her, done events with her. So I do have some of the personal collections, and I'll just send a DM and say, hey, I've got all your books. Can you come into the store to sign them? And then on their pages, they're saying, oh, well, I'm following so and so. You might want to try this book. And so we'll look at it. And my friend Joanne, who works for another Barnes and Nobles here in the Austin area, did Tracy Wolf's first signing when she started way back when we were at B Dalton. That's how long ago. And so that's another way. And then I follow Sabrina Jeffries, and she'll send me an arc. Same with Jenna, they'll send me arcs of their books, or their assistants will send me, will you want to do a book funnel? Or my friend Kat Brown, who lives in Arizona, sent me a book funnel for one of hers anthologies, which was sci-fi. Not one something normally that I would read, but I enjoyed it. And I said to everybody, hey, when this book comes out, it's on Kindle, go ahead and get it because you'll enjoy it. My friend Deanne has unlimited Kindle. So she's always telling me, oh, look, if it wasn't for this app, I wouldn't be reading this book. And so she gives me a different list. And then my cousin Raynell is the one who got me started on Claudia. So because she works with Claudia and does reviews for her and things like that. So that's how I've been able to do that. And then Harlequin Sons is a box. Well, they used to, and we got one right in the middle of the pandemic. So they had new books that were on there. But I do follow a lot of, like Roseann said, on Facebook, their social medias, and that's where I get a lot of the new books. And I don't do Edelweiss because I can't figure that out. I do NetGalley because it's just easier for me. So like, okay, this looks interesting. Let me go ahead and download this. And I'm fortunate now that I have automatic reads for some of them. So when it's Berkeley, I'm like, oh, thank God. So I'll just pull and I'll say we have a new position in the company that one person is in charge of ordering for the 5 stores. And I say, okay, John, I'm ordering this for our store. Let's see how it does. And he will order them. We sell them. Then he orders them for the other stores. Because not all the other stores have somebody who reads romance,
Yeah.
but they do well. So
Yeah.
somebody said, why did we get this? He goes, because Edna sold all the ones she ordered. So we're going to try it at your store.
fault.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have had a few managers say, Edna. And I'm like, yes. Where are the rest of the books? And I said, that's all I found. So give me a break. So
Yeah, for those
Mhm.
who just have a Barnes and Noble in your area, it is noticeable that, sorry, Edna, that some of them have more robust romance sections than others. The latest change that they've made has done really well. So I always find it's a good place to hunt in library land, to take a look at your local bookstore. One, support them, because if you don't, they won't be there. And two, a lot of times as librarians, if somebody's placed a hold on something, it goes right out the door. So I don't see things to come in, and taking a look at the displays that they have in the stores is a great way of, I must admit, I take photographs, but usually it's to remember titles that I want to read, and to see what's going on and what's coming out. And when you get a pretty cover selection, I'm always good for a good display too. So Leah, what about you? What resources do you think are your go-tos?
I think the only thing that Roseann and Edna didn't really mention is customers, and for us, pre-orders. So I mean, our customers tend to be on it. They are, the second something becomes available for pre-orders, we'll start to see that coming in, sometimes before I even know about it. So we're definitely paying attention to that, especially if it's from an author that I'm not personally familiar with, and that's going to tell us how excited people are about something. And obviously we're on social media, but it's just, there's an incredible volume. So many of my customers are also really plugged into romance social media. So I'll talk to them and they'll say, did you see blah, blah, blah announced a new book? And I'm like, oh no, and they're like, oh, I'm really excited for it. And I'm like, okay, store that in the old vault. And yeah, just hearing what they're excited for. And people will literally like ask us, like, can you have an event with this person? I'm like, well, first of all, I have no idea where they live, but if I know that at least one person is interested in it, that makes a difference. I think this is probably pretty different for libraries, but we try to, we've cultivated really good relationships with our sales reps from the different publishers over the years, so they know what we're interested in. And publicists that we work with on various events, we'll make sure that we know about new and upcoming things. And then also, I think it definitely comes into play when I'm hiring people, because I try to hire people who read different things than I do. So obviously when I'm hiring booksellers, I talk to them about what they like to read, and it's not a deal breaker. I'm not going to not hire somebody if they like the same books that I do, but it's really helpful when they have a different knowledge base, and can provide something that
use your team. Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely.
We can't, unfortunately, as we've all learned, we can't read them all.
Unfortunately.
Very true.
And Women of Color in Romance is a really fantastic resource. It's run by a local author out here in California. And I don't know, am I allowed to say adult words on this thing?
I think so. As long
Okay.
as, it's not like you're just swearing.
No, it's part of the
their
name.
title.
It's part of the name. Smart Bitches, Trashy Books.
That's fine. We all know them.
Is
And if
great.
you don't, you should.
Yeah, just a great resource. It's part of the name. So I always like to see what they've got going on.
It's always very interesting to me how social media, being a romance reader for a long time, and you may agree, how social media has exploded it. And your customers have become a resource because various
Yes.
authors are so in involved with not only promoting their own books, which some people may think, but find the authors. My tip is find the authors who also promote other people's. There are various authors. Regina King is one. Regina Kyle, sorry. She does a thing every Tuesday. You know, these are all the ones that are coming out. They're not her books. They're everybody else's. The ones who support their own romance community, I think, is really great. And that it is. Even for librarians, it's becoming harder to keep up because of it in some sense, but that's a good thing, isn't it?
It is a good thing. Can I just step in real quick?
Sure, go ahead.
We have a couple of local authors that come in once a month on Sunday, and they call it Other People's Books, and they take over our Instagram. It's Salika Snyder
Oh,
and Marie
awesome.
Piper, and they talk about other people's books, which is fabulous. So
That is
they're
awesome.
a great resource.
That's great. I
Mhm.
love that kind of a program. That's always our favorite question to ask authors is, you know, what's on your nightstand? What are you reading? Enough about you. But based on, this was a question from one of our audience members because we kind of reached out. And with, I was talking about colorful book covers. There's been a resurgence in certain styles of book covers. Based on your experience in selling, how much does a book cover art make a difference in a book's popularity? Or do they, is more traditional cover art sold over more of the cartoon-like covers? We can debate how cartoony the covers are, or vice versa. What do you think? Anybody want? Roseann, I'm going to
Oh,
pick on
okay.
you. 'Cause you just,
Honestly, I was looking at the question earlier, and all I could think of was if they want to read the book, it doesn't matter what the cover is.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, people debate it in the store all the time, but ultimately, if you're going to want to read that author, you're going to buy the book. So,
Yeah,
that's
I
the way
agree
look
with
at it.
that. If
Yeah,
if
that
you're
is-
already looking for a particular book, I don't think the cover matters that much. I think a cover can stop someone from buying a book if they pull it off the shelf as like a totally random thing. But I think, like Roseann said, if you come in to buy The Love Hypothesis, I don't really think you really care that much what it looks like. But we carry a lot of self-published books because there are so many in romance and so many good ones. And it's not necessarily, I think, the same as it is in other genres, where that's where all the crap ends up. There's plenty of crap, but and that's, you know, unfortunately, we tend to see a lot of not great covers, and that will absolutely impact our buying decisions, because I know that can stop someone from
especially if it's a new author. Yeah.
Off a shelf. Yeah. And yeah, in terms of the cartoon thing, I don't really care. It's a trend. It'll end at some point. As with all trends, I think they've taken it a little too far. But I, you know, at some point I'm like, I have no control over this. So, you know, their publishers are going to do what they're going to do.
That is true. And honestly, authors really don't have a say in how their cover looks, because I've talked to so many and they've said, don't have a say. One will say, oh, thank God it really came out how I wanted it. So that's how I've realized that authors don't. I said, don't you get to have a say? And they're like, nope, we don't.
Yeah.
They said only the powerful ones. And somebody said Eloisa might have a say on how her cover looks. She goes, but they gave that as an example. But they said the majority of the time they don't have a voice on how. They can say, we like this color, these are the colors, more or less. But in the end, the result, they don't have a say in it. And I'll give you a great example. Suzanne Brockman's on Getting Lucky. All the Navy SEAL characters that each book was based on, they described them, you know, the abs, the whole thing, the Navy SEAL. When you saw the cover for the book of Get Lucky, he was not anything described. He was wearing the white, the Navy whites, but he was a chubby Navy SEAL. You know, his hair was a little long, blonde. The only thing they got right was the blonde hair and the eyes. But other than that, and Suzanne was like, this is not Lucky. So when they redid the cover, it was a totally different cover. And it was like, this is what I thought of what he would look like. So that's how I always remember that, because she always brought that up, because as fans, we're all like, what happened to this cover? So
Yeah, no, it's very interesting because people, I mean, the way the secondary market goes, sometimes people are hunting for specific covers, whether it be, I think it's Christina Dodd has one that's got a third arm and some other ones
Yes,
that
it's the
are a little
best.
wacky. And there's a great site on Twitter, and I don't have the name of it off bat. We'll put it in the chat eventually. There's one about it's retro covers, and that's all they do is post retro covers, and it's great fun if you're a romance fan. So we kind of touched base on new authors and the power of a cover to not maybe prevent someone from trying a new author, but definitely not encouraging it. But what are you with a new author, and you all have readers who they are this reader. They want this when they come in. Like Leah said, they specifically know they have their lists. How do you approach a new debut author that you're excited about with your customers? Roseann, I'm going to start with you.
Well, usually I try to put it front and center so that if I have a pile of books like new releases, I'll make sure it's right there. And as I show people around the store, if they're there for the first time, they know what this is the new releases are. And so I'll point out that book. It's really fun doing it for local authors too. Yeah, I always love giving them a boost. So this is the one, Hannah Ernest, All the Best Nights. She's a local author, so she came in and did a signing. Almost everyone that comes in has to hear about that book from me because it's so good. So that's what I do. If it's a new artist, author that someone hasn't heard of before, I just try to promote it. Just try to tell them how much I like the book. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Leah, do you guys have a special corner in the store for new releases?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, we have a new releases table. So people are usually drawn to that. Yeah, I think if somebody is reluctant for whatever reason or unsure of a newer author, it's always a good idea to describe their writing in relation to someone more established. It's they write banter like Christina Lauren does, or it's got really nice historical details like Tessa Dare does, or something like that. And for a younger crowd, we're like, oh, this is the TikTok book. You don't want to be behind.
Yes.
Everyone's talking about it on Twitter. And obviously if I have read it, or if one of my booksellers has read it, that's a pretty good endorsement for people.
Edna, you guys have a new release. Do romances usually make it into that?
Yes, especially on Monday nights if I'm the one that's closing. They make it, and they're on the step ladder because you walk in and they're like example, Julia Quinn's Lady Whistledown's Wit.
Mm-hmm.
He came in and I'm like, I don't want to read this. And I'm like, oh, we have another one of Quentin Tarantino's book, with excerpts of his last movie that Brad Pitt won. Cannot remember the title, okay? But I know along with Dune. And I'm like, okay, yeah, no, sorry. Julia's going here. She's center. And I put everybody else's books out, Will Smith's new one and everything. But I had all my romance that came out in hardcover. I stuck there. Then I went to my new table and moved everybody, put them all right center. And we have a Christmas table. So I have Eloisa's and I have Rianne Dime. I have everybody who did a new Christmas is dead center. And then of course, Debbie is on the bestsellers list again. So I moved some other books that are not my politics and shove those to the bottom of the pile, just to make it symmetry and look pretty. So she's got a double face out. And when Nora was on there, she had a double face out. So they all know that I've closed because they're there front and center. And
I'm gonna interject on what a double face out is. Obviously, it's two piles of books that are faced out next to each other, so you have a nice slick going. In library land, it doesn't happen as much because we sometimes don't have as many copies as you guys do in bookstore land. So that's funny. They always know when you're closing, obviously.
Oh yeah, they know.
We touched on this a little earlier. and I kind of sent you the questions ahead of time because I knew this is a hard question. Is there a book when someone brand new to romance comes in that you like to recommend as a starter? It's kind of like, okay, if I recommend a contemporary for a new person, it's this title. If someone says they like historical, I recommend this author. Do you have any favorites like that that seem to work really well for you? I'll start Leah off on that.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, there's a million. And again, I have conducted my little interview. But yeah, I think I try to, especially establish contemporary, historical, paranormal. By the way, if someone doesn't know the answer to that question, I'll always go contemporary, because there's just less, stuff they have to contend with. So I mentioned this one before, but Get a Life, Chloe Brown by Talia Hibbert is a great starting point for a lot of people. It's pretty universally popular. Same with Alyssa Cole in historical or contemporary. She's a great place to start for historical because she has a Civil War series, and Civil War isn't always the most popular with people, and especially because it tends to be exclusively written by white people. So, to be able to say, here's a historical about a Black spy based on a real person, written by this incredible Black author, really, I think opens people's eyes to what is possible. And what else? Rebecca Weatherspoon is local to us in Los Angeles. And she's a great one for people who like a range of spice levels, because she writes everything. So she's got a sweeter cowboy series with not very much sex. And then she has this series is called Beards and Bondage. And it is about lumberjack men who are into bondage. And
says it all in the title.
So that I think you're trying to show people the breadth of what is available. So you can say, like, here's this one author and she writes this whole spectrum of things. And my other favorite historical author is definitely Tessa Dare, especially because she's so funny. And I think that people think of historical romance as being very, I don't know if serious is the right word, but like
stuffy.
Sort of, exactly. Stuffy, buttoned up. Yeah, exactly. And Tessa Dare is really, she just has such a great sense of humor. And she's a million books, but I usually start people with A Night to Surrender.
Roseann, what about you?
Yeah, so I was looking at my list on what I wrote down, and Leah stole them, but that's okay.
Sorry.
No, I'm just kidding. For historical, for me, Beverly Jenkins. We always have people start with her, just because, well, her heat level is pretty moderate, I guess. But you just learn so much just because she does such research. And for contemporary, well, Talia Hibbert, Alyssa Cole's contemporaries are good. But we like Sonali Dev too, because she writes Jane Austen books where they're similar to the plot line of Jane Austen's, but they're contemporary. So yeah, but I wanted to say for Rebecca, Rafe, I can't keep Rafe on the shelf. I mean, that book sells every time I get 3 or 4 in, they're gone that weekend. So she's
fabulous.
She's definitely, she moves in the store. Yeah.
The subtitle of that book is A Buff Male Nanny.
Yes.
Rebecca just, she writes to the culture, for lack of a better word, a term. She knows exactly what readers want at that moment. And she writes things that have a somewhat silly premise, such as a buff male nanny, but also like takes it seriously and really, makes it work. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah,
that's pretty funny. Edna, what about you for beginners?
For beginners, I will start them with my favorite old classic, and it's Nora Roberts, and I go with The Witness or The Collector. And I go, if you like, because some will say, well, I want kind of something historic but make it contemporary. And I said, well, you want to do this? I go, because The Witness, it's about the US Marshals. It deals with the Russian mob. And the minute I mention the Russian mob, they're like, oh, I'll take that. So they like it. And then when I mentioned The Collector, I said, it talks about the Fabergé eggs and all that. And she's like, oh, never mind. Let me take that. So those are on contemporary. I will go to my fallback, which is Nora. And another fallback on contemporary is Julie Garwood. And we usually have Mercy in the store for some reason. So I'll start them with that because I kind of just like Theo and I like Michelle, but I also like Big Daddy. So it's just, I think it's just a cute story, family story. But as for historical, it just depends. I can go with Amanda Quick because she was one of the, besides Joanna, or I can start with Joanna Lindsay's and start with the Mallory series.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a lot. Once you get something that sometimes I ask that too. Do you want something that's a standalone or do you want something that's a series? Because we all know people who may not want to get hooked into something that's long term. That's always a consideration. The power of displays. Everybody talks about them. Everybody has them. I've been in Love Sweet Arrow. I've seen pictures and when you guys have them on your website for Ripped Bodice, and it's obvious that Barnes & Noble has been having actually a romance display, trade paperback display for a while. And how powerful are they? Do they really bring people to the table? It's limited space. And for the independents, you're the ones making those choices on what's on those tables. What do you think, Leah?
I think yes. It's, retail psychology is a fascinating topic to me. And I continue to, I've never taken a class in it, but I continue to conduct my own experiments on my customers without their knowledge. Yes, I think that the interesting thing I have found is really where things are in the store. And the most surprising thing I think is there's literally a table right when you walk in. It's the worst spot in the store. It's so strange to me. I mean, I've now figured it out, but I think people want to come more of the way in. Sometimes they'll circle back to that.
That's interesting.
But yeah, it's a fascinating phenomenon to me. So actually we used to try to put things that we were, excited about there, and that wasn't really working. So now, we have a pretty large window, and I do pretty elaborate window displays because I like it. And
they're great.
Thank you.
Mhm.
So now that's where I put everything that's in the window display, so that when anyone comes in and is like, where's that book in the window? We say, it's on the front table. And yeah, I think I'm always experimenting. It tends to be fairly seasonally based. There were so many new witch books this year. So we did a lot of, and we have many Halloween decorations. So that was easy to decorate. But so I think theming things is good. I think if you have a table of just sort of random titles, it's sort of what is the, unifying
Element.
Exactly. Thank you. But yes, I love putting together displays, and I think that they're super helpful.
Roseann?
Yeah, I was thinking of the witch displays too, because boy, those there were so many witch books this fall, which was fabulous. That seeing them in the window definitely pulled people in, so that was good. But now I'm thinking about that front table, and I have it with kids stuff, and that's probably a good place for it because people will walk right past it, but maybe on their way out they catch it. Thank you, Leah.
I know which one you're talking about. Yeah.
Yes. And right now we have hand sanitizer and masks there, so that if in
Yeah.
case you walk in, hey, stop right there. Yeah, but seasonal seasonal windows are fun. So I will not take down my fall one now until after Thanksgiving, because I think fall is still here. But inside the store, we do have some Christmas displays, but not in the window yet. So yeah. Mhm.
Excellent.
I'm not that creative though. Leah, she's fabulous. We look at her windows
Thank
and go, oh, God.
Get ideas.
Yes, great
Thank
idea.
you.
Let me just say, librarians get our ideas for displays wherever we can. Trust us. We take them from retail. We take them from each other all the time. So yeah, Edna. So you guys are more, let's just face, more of your space, display space has been allocated, let us say, sometimes.
It was allocated.
Okay, so
However,
it's changing.
it has changed when James Daunt took over. He is now given the managers in the store. He says, you know your clientele, you know what's going to sell. You do
Excellent.
it the way you want. Our store manager also happens to be the cluster area for the 5 stores in this area. So we're the only 2-story store. Everybody else is a 1-story store. And I'm like, could we be a 1-story store, please? Because it is gratifying sometimes, and other times it's like, oh God.
It's big. When you guys have displays on the second floor, they're usually pretty big and they're pretty
Yes.
usually deep of stuff, especially around Christmas time, I've noticed.
Yeah, right now. So yeah, when you walk in, we have all the recommend books, and they're not hardcovers. There's a couple of them, but most of them are the paperbacks because it's your monthly. Oh, this is the one we're promoting this month, and people will pick them up because we have that buy one get one half off, and you can mix and match. It's not, before it used to be only those books on that table. Now, if there's one in the kids department, you can mix and match it with that. If it's in the teen section, you can mix and match it with that, history, whatever. So we don't have it allocated like it used to be that way. And yes, before James Daunt came aboard, everything came from corporate and everybody got the same thing. And we're like, this isn't going to sell in this part of the country. Send it to the other store because that's more their clientele. Now we have where everybody gets to make their own decisions, and I get to do things in kids that I don't have to ask for permission or request. I've just done it and it sells, and anything before, I will say, and I'm going to use this author character first. Harry Potter, there was a certain clientele that would not buy it. Now, because of everything, that clientele that would never buy Harry Potter are the ones that are all buying Harry Potter now. And,
Interesting.
So I'm just sitting here looking, and I could remember some of those kids that came in with their parents and grandparents and wouldn't buy it. And now they're buying it for their kids. And I was just like, wow, you are the parent that I didn't think would buy it, but okay. But
You, I'm going to interrupt you here. You talked about regionalisms.
yes.
How much specifically in Texas, I think we have, Northerners seem to have a viewpoint. How much of your books do you carry in Spanish? Do you carry the Spanish Harlequins?
No, I don't carry the Spanish Harlequins, but I do carry Spanish romance.
Okay.
And we do carry the Spanish. The store I'm in, we have the biggest Spanish section. The kids department, right now, we're helping an elementary do the annual book drive, and it happens to be one of the primarily speaking Spanish. So my Spanish department section is being decimated because everything's being donated to them, and people have no problem with that. They're being really super nice. When in the past, we used to do Dell's Children's Hospital, and we would get, they have money. They don't need any of our help. And I would be, this is for the hospital, for when the children leave, they need to have new books so they are not germ. And but our climate and our state compared to other states is very, very.
Well, everybody has a unique, and it's a unique time because, and being booksellers and librarians, sometimes we can't push our agenda on anyone else because we want sales and or happy patrons. It's hard. It's a very hard time. Nope.
Nope, we do it all the time. Sorry.
The
guys
power of
might
the
have-
independent.
You guys might have it different, but we do not believe that at all.
Oh,
What
I-
do you, when you talk regionalisms, what do you find goes very well? Because you do have a specific LGBTQ plus section that some bookstores don't have anymore. Especially for, I mean, romance, you can do it in its focus. Is that a good seller for you because of that?
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, listen, we're in LA. It's just different. I mean, Chicago is probably pretty similar. New York's probably pretty similar. But and we make it a point to advertise as being very queer friendly. We happen to be queer owned. Go gays. And so we hope, and we have seen that people understand that this is a very safe space for that. But yes, it sells fantastically. I think because there's so few other places to get these books. Obviously you could get them on the internet, but you know, I think people like to browse and get that, you know, you can't get that same expert opinion. And you know, so many of the LGBTQ titles are still coming from really small presses or self-published. It's slightly improving, like, you know, major houses are putting out maybe like 2 a year now, which is better.
Yeah,
than
you get your 1 or 2 authors who they've decided to take on.
better than zero. But it's better than zero. But so because so many of those are from the smaller presses, a lot of other bookstores, both independents and chains, don't have them, often because they don't have like good return policies or what have you. So we get a lot of people who are like, oh, I've never seen this book like in, you know, in physical
In print.
form. Yeah,
Period. Yeah.
exactly. So yes, is the answer to the question. The section does really well and continues to grow.
Do you think besides Rebecca, because she's local, that you guys have other regionalisms that say this is LA and this is?
That's
I
an
can let you
interesting.
think on that and jump
Yeah.
to Roseann.
No, it's a good question. I think, well, the answer is, you know, there's a large swath of romance that we don't really sell, which is Christian romance. It's just not really what our customer base is interested in. We'll happily order it for people, but we're not really selling it off the shelves.
Yeah. And vice versa. In ours, we do sell a lot of it, but also it is not in our romance section. It is upstairs in the Christian area.
The Christian
So like,
section.
yeah, so like Francine Rivers, the time her books come in, they will be downstairs in the new release bay because people come in specifically for her. So that is something I will have down. But it is very true. We are starting to get, like Leah said, a couple of the gay, lesbian books in because the houses are starting to bring in a couple of the authors. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to get them. I would have to say, I can order it and have it shipped to you at home. It's something I just can't have in the store because it's a print on demand. And when it's a POD, that's really the sucky kind of part for the customer because they can't see it. They can't put their hands on it. They want to
They can't
see
browse it.
Yeah, they want to browse it. They can't do that. And that's the bad thing about PODs. And I totally get it for the small publishers. And I understand where they're coming from with that.
I'm going to jump in and POD is print on demand and literally it's just as it says. Now I've seen some of those printers. It's amazing how they can do it. You order it, it is print it for your request from the warehouse. I don't know if libraries have expanded themselves to do that. We might do it for, like as you guys said, for specific authors and what have you, but it's great if you want something in print and that's what you want for physical bookstores. That's interesting that you guys have that access. Roseann, what about you? I know you guys do a very good job at supporting the local area authors, but who else do you find does very well for you guys? That you would consider maybe a regional favorite or something.
Well,
along
I
those
have to
lines.
agree with Leah. We do have an inspirational section, and and it doesn't even get browsed on a regular basis. So we'll have to make some changes to that. But we really try to make a good emphasis on LGBTQ books and then authors of color. So if we do a display, we try to make it equal. So there are everyone is represented in our windows. So yeah, I mean, we did a event this summer with Penny Ames, and she wrote For the Love of April French, and that was our first transgender book that we had in the store. So that was really interesting, and that book sells regularly because people it's on their radar now. And I actually read it, and boy, I mean, okay, I don't mean to sound stupid, but I learned so much reading that book. Just about, well, there was bondage in there, yeah, okay, but just about transgender people. So I refer that book a lot. I'll say to people, this is something that you need to read. Yeah, for the love of, and so that was a good book. And I have a sister who's gay, and her partner, and they took it last time they were in town home to read it. And Shannon was like, I'm passing this book on to all my gay boys. And I'm like, okay.
Is she a regular romance reader?
No, she's not. But I
So
said,
there you
you need
go.
to read this book. You need to read this book.
There you
And
go.
it took her
That's
a couple
interesting.
weeks, but she was like, that was such a good book. And I'm like, I know, I love to recommend that book. Yeah. So
I'm going to jump to pandemic and programming. And I know, particularly with Roseann and Leah, you guys have been, oh my God, the stuff okay, if you guys, if I'm speaking to the library audience, if you want to see what an author sounds like, sometimes we like to preview people before we can invite them over. For us, go to the Ripped Bodice and Love Sweet Arrow. They have interviewed or had interviews with practically everyone in the romance world, I think, during this pandemic. In fact, there's one tonight at the Ripped Bodice that I might jump in on, but the timing ends up right. But yeah, how has that been for programming? Do you feel I guess the whole question is pandemic, post-pandemic, what do you think you're going to keep? What has been successful for you? And how much of that programming has been successful for you? Leah, let's let you start.
Oh God. It's just like, PTSD or whatever. Well, okay. So pre-pandemic, we were doing about a dozen events a month. I have a dedicated events coordinator. She doesn't work full time, but she does part time and has a lot to do. And it was going great. And then everything ended. So she was like, do we need to get a Zoom account? And I was like, no, it'll be fine. We'll just wait until this is over. That was wrong. So I think we did our first virtual event, I want to say like end of June, maybe July. And now at this point, we're freaking running them like clockwork. And I will say the nice thing, it's infinitely easier to put together. It's just the time and labor, like that's obviously way less. Sales wise, not good. I think I think there are many people who are eager to keep virtual events, especially from an access point, which I totally hear and get. As you've said, we've had so many authors we never would have had in the store because they don't have to physically be in the store, and people can watch from all over the world, which is fantastic. However, from a money standpoint, we don't make much, if anything. If you were to do a straight comparison of, say, a 2-author event that we might have 50 people in the store for and probably sell 45 copies of the book, most people are going to buy the book, versus the same authors, we might have 250 people watching online and we're going to sell 5 copies of the book, because it's just, there's not the convenience, you're not right there, there's not the social pressure, you're not getting it signed by the author.
It's not the impulse buy. Yeah.
Exactly. And they don't have the opportunity to then buy all the other things in the store. So sales wise, not great. Access wise, very good. Time wise, very good. So our plan for post pandemic is still evolving. Absolutely. I mean, we were originally planning on going back to in person in September, and we were planning that in like July, and then it got really bad in July, so we had to scrap that plan. So our book club started meeting again outside. There's a park behind the store in September, and that's been going really well. But obviously, we can't really. It's not really the same as like an author event. It's like 15 people.
Sure.
So our very first, we have started scheduling people for the new year. And we're gonna kind of see how it goes. I keep telling authors, I'm like, I just have no idea what attendance is going to be like, like I don't want you to be sad if only 5 people show up. There's just no real way to know. I think we will continue to do virtual events for quite a while, possibly forever, especially in terms of people who do not live in Los Angeles or who aren't passing through Los Angeles. So we'll definitely keep that up, but it's really evolving week by week, day by day. So check back in a few months, and we'll let you know how return to in person has gone. I'm looking forward to it, but I'm also nervous. It's hard to gauge how comfortable people are. But then I said sorry, I'm rambling, but I said to my events manager, I was like, they have 10,000 people in a football stadium. I think we can have 40 people in a bookstore. So
Yeah, that's a good thing.
That's where we're at.
Yeah.
Rosalind, what about you?
I agree. It's been really, and I don't think we were doing 12. We were probably doing almost every weekend an event or two, but we're probably doing a good 7 a month online now. And we're ready to get back in the store, but I'm not sure people are. So what we've been doing, we started book club again, but we do it we have this nice space in the back, but everyone has to be masked. And then I started doing just local authors coming in. And I have it like for a couple hours, so you could come in and meet them. They're not necessarily going to read from their book or anything, but you can meet them and talk with them and then get your book and go. So that's kind of where I am right now. But boy, I would love to do a big event before Christmas. I'm just not sure we're ready to do it.
Yeah.
So
with the restrictions.
But I do agree that the online events, while they're great and people love them, and we probably won't stop them, we won't do as many as we do now. We're not selling things from them. Yeah, not on a regular basis. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Edna, has Barnes & Noble been doing
They've
online?
been doing online, and it's been handled through New York. So they've had the big authors, so we can sign up to do that, go through those virtually. And speaking on Leah, just agreeing with what Leah and Roseann said, I just did the Buns and Roses event, which helps
You did the book
literacy.
through your Edna's Emporium. Yeah.
Yes. Just as they were saying, last year we did well because it was virtual and we sold a lot. This year, the sales were not there compared to last year. It was, and this year I did have everybody's books. I had more than enough. And I was just like, really? I kept, at the end of the conference, I was like waiting and waiting and waiting for that little register thing to hit on my phone. Nothing. And then after we started, I did get like 5 or 6 that came in, to where last year I had like 20 that came in on the last day. This year, it was just so, and
Not
I'm
as
thinking
much.
not as much. Had it been in person, like I thought we were going to have it before all this other stuff came about, I'm more than comfortably to say that I would have come back home with just empty boxes, because I think everything would have sold, because everybody
Everybody gets excited. It's a group
Yes.
frenzy. Yeah.
Mhm.
It's a
And
group
even-
frenzy of buying
So
because you're
it
having
would've
so
been-
much fun.
Yeah, so I was kind of looking forward to that. But then I thought, okay, we did well last year. We can do well again this year. No, it's just
Okay.
like Leah and Roseann said, it's not, it's a great way to communicate with everyone. And so everybody can see, again, different parts of the world, but financially wise,
Not so
you're
great.
not so great.
Okay. This is the fun part for us because we want to know what books you're recommending. Besides what you've already recommended. And you kind of already talked about what galleys you have access to. And it sounds like, especially you guys, because they know you're specific in this genre, they want those to get those into your hands. But what book, we call it like a sure bet in library land, that we know the percentage of people who come back and really like this book is just huge. It's old reliable. Maybe that's a better way to put it. What book, and it doesn't have to be a new person, it can be a ravenous reader of romance, and we all know those as well. I call them Uber readers. But what book do you give people as a sure bet? Who wants to start? Roseann?
Oh, I'm looking for my answers.
Yeah, I pulled my lists up before this, so I knew
Well,
that
that's
my,
why I gave you those questions
I
beforehand,
know,
because I
I
knew.
know.
know.
I didn't want my
so I
mind to be
did say,
blank.
yes, act your age, Eve Round. That anything Talia Hibbert, I think, is a sure bet as far as
Yeah.
contemporary. Yes. So let's see, historical, my sure bet. Sarah McLean is a good seller in our store. So she's a sure bet for that. I hand sell a lot of Tessa Bailey too. So
Oh, yes.
yeah. And Cat Sebastian. Yeah.
Oh,
I
yeah.
hand sell a lot
Oh,
of
yeah.
her.
Big favorite. Big favorite.
Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Leah?
I think this year, anyone who expresses like the slightest bit of interest in erotica, Neon Gods by Katie Robert has just been doing fantastically. That one's also pretty popular on TikTok and things. So if they express any interest in that, that's a great one. I guess the season for it might be slightly over. We'll have to see. But Payback's a Witch by Lana Harper was doing great all through fall. Yeah, it'll actually be interesting to see if people still want to buy it now that Halloween is over. But it's a great book even without that. The Roommate by Rosie Danon is a great one, especially for younger readers, because it involves sex work and also takes place in LA, which we like. There strangely aren't that many books that are in LA. It's like not a super popular setting for romance novels. So we get excited about that.
Oh, yeah. Local. Anything that's local.
Yeah.
Or it seems local. Let's put it that way. Edna, what about you? What's your
Well,
sure bet?
right now, Hallmark books that are doing, I recommended Sweet Tea by Piper Harley from Georgia. And we were talking about it when we were doing in the group sessions for Buns and Roses. And I said, oh, I started reading this at work. I picked it up because I knew I had to bring it in. And I go, before I bought all the copies, I'm sitting there looking and everybody's like, what are you doing? I said, I'm reading this book. I love it. And since I had some of the people who went to the event virtual buy it because they liked what I said. And then I heard back from PJ. She said, oh my God, Edna, that is so cute. And I said, yes, it really was cute. It's about two people who meet up that come back home. One who stayed home, one who comes back to take care of her dad and everything. And it's just an interracial romance. It's just really cute. I really loved it. And so that's one that I've been recommending. Another one I've recommended, the Boyfriend Project by Farah. So she happened to be in the store before her new book came out. So she autographed them because she was in town going back, doing something with her publisher. So she was in the store and everything. So she came in and there's a picture of me looking like a little nerd, just like, I'm just like, yeah, with the mask. And I'm just like, yeah.
Nothing like a romance nerd.
Yes.
You brought it up, so I'm going to, so here's a question, and it wasn't on your pre-done questions. How much does the Hallmark Christmas movies affect your business? I know people who watch those religiously, but they're not romance readers. Does there a crossover or maybe not? What do you guys think, Leah?
Honestly, not really that I've noticed. I've never really thought about it, but I'm gonna go with no. Yeah, not really.
Because I know they've got their own imprint now, and
Yes.
they've
Yeah.
been promoting
Yeah.
those obviously as shows as well, and some authors who have had their books picked up for
Yeah.
them.
We
But-
definitely sell like Christmas and holiday books. I will say I think the Hallmark ones tend to not be marketed at our audience. Let's put it that way.
Okay, Roseann.
I would have to agree. If people watch Hallmark and come in, then I could rec them something similar. But yeah,
It's a great
they're not-
starting point.
Yeah, yeah, it's a great starting point. But they're not in there looking for the Hallmark books. Yeah.
No.
mm-mm.
Okay.
Most times, because I worked at Hallmark to pay for my habit, which was the Hallmark ornaments. We won't discuss that because books and ornaments just, my brother's like, do I need to call hoarders intervention? That's another session another time. So they started carrying them. And before pre-pandemic, Kathy Maxwell had an event called Austin, the Salon for Austin, and Terry Wilson came in. And
Yeah,
she writes for Harlequin, and one of her books is Marrying Mr. Darcy. And I remember trying to order them from Barnes and Nobles for the event was much more difficult. My boss, I said, I need these, how many copies for the event? And I go, and I don't want to go through Amazon. So he called the regional corporate in Kansas, and he got us a case, which I bought, and then I went and sold for the event. So people were like, oh, so you got these through Barnes and Nobles? And I said, no. I asked my friend David, who's the manager for the local Hallmark, if he could get them for me. So
Yeah,
he got them for me.
They're not as distributed as well. I'm not sure why
But-
behind that. So for libraries, they might be harder to get to.
Yes.
If you guys are having problems with them.
Well, now we're starting to get more,
More.
but they're not geared to the Christmas movies like they're doing the Christmas movies. According to Piper, you have to meet, there's a criteria that you have to do because when you write for them, you're also writing a proposal for a movie. That's how
Oh, wow.
they do that. So when you get picked to get asked to write for Hallmark, that's how your proposal is. Not only is it for the book, but it's also proposal for the movie to see if there's an option for it to be picked up.
Interesting.
was
Somebody
really-
did this in between as we're going through recommendations. Somebody mentioned teens. What do you give? Do you have a lot of teen readers coming in? Beginner, those are your beginner romance people.
Yes.
Is there a specific author you recommend, specific title? What do you think, Leah?
Yeah, we get a lot of teenagers. We're
Cool.
right down the street from a high school. And so yeah, we get a lot of teenagers. I love them. I'm kind of scared of them, but I'm just like, they're so much cooler than I was at that age. I'm like, how are you guys like so cool now? I was like so lame at your age, but yeah, I mean, listen, I think I would say I take those customers the most seriously because this is your opportunity to get them in young and just to help foster that love of reading and I don't know what they're reading at school, but listen, most of the stuff I read at school was like that. So, or just not representative of me. So I think it's an opportunity to show them that there are, so many books that represent them, and there are because YA is, well, actually, I think it goes in reverse order. So, kids is the most diverse, and then YA, and then adult. But yeah, so there's really, really fantastic stuff in YA. Personally, as a reader, it's not my favorite because I suffer from a lot of secondhand embarrassment, and I'm always like, it just reminds me of being a teenager, and I'm like, this is terrible. You couldn't pay me to do this again. So I don't read a ton of it myself. I try to read a couple every year to kind of stay up on things. But yeah, and there's a lot of really great, I think pure romance YA has really been increasing recently. I mean, there's still obviously a ton of fantasy, but now you can get really like a lot. And for some reason, LA, we just have a ton of YA authors here. Maureen Gu writes great romances with Korean American teenagers. Sarah Kuhn, who also writes adults, writes great YA ones. She does Japanese American teenagers. One of my favorite books from last year was called You Should See Me in a Crown by Leah Johnson, not me, Leah, different Leah. And that was about a young queer girl who's running for prom queen. I think she's in Indiana or something like that. Anyway, that one was great. Julie Murphy is one of my all-time favorites, and she's also like the nicest human in the world. And Sandhya Menon, Dimple, When Dimple Met Rishi, is one of my favorite yeah, and it's just it's interesting. It's so interesting to me, like, because it really follows a lot of the same tropes as an adult romance, but obviously they're teenagers. But yeah, so yeah, there are some really, really great YA authors.
Roseann, what have you found?
Unfortunately, we live close to a high school, so my YA section is increasing and not increasing. So we keep on buying them, but we're not selling as much as we'd like to. So I think we're going to start doing a couple of TikToks to see if we could get more interest in our YA section.
Yeah, it works. It works. I will tell you.
Let me tell you. Oh, yeah, I totally agree with Leah. That works, because that is what we get. Our YA section has been doing extremely well. A lot of it is because it's been on the book talk table for TikTok. So like Adam Silverine, they'll both die at the end. That was, I still have it on my TikTok table because that one sells out all the time. Anything is Sarah J. Maas sells everything. But right now, I don't know about Roseann or you, Leah, do you all do any manga in your location?
No, people have asked for it occasionally, not enough for me to make me do it. We do have graphic novels.
Yes.
I just feel like I don't know anything about manga. I'd have to, and none of my staff really does either. I just don't feel like I have the expertise. So we've never done it. And there's a really nice independent comic shop not that far from us. So I usually just send people there. But yeah, people have asked for it.
Because that's the one thing that I have seen during the pandemic. We didn't used to sell manga as much. Yeah, we would sell. They would come in for their, but once pandemic hit, oh my God, we couldn't keep anything in the shelves. It was just the same with crossword puzzles. Not crossword, but jigsaw puzzles. We couldn't keep anything, any of them in the store. They'd come in the back door before my boss would open the box. She'd say, okay, if you want it, buy it, give me your card. You have to buy it now, because otherwise somebody orders it online, it's gone. So we would be there just waiting to open the jigsaw puzzle box so we could get one, because
that's almost another discussion, because there's so much of it. And like you said, Leah, you do have to have some expertise even in selecting it. And there are, depending on the publication, depending on the author, depending on the series, there's also, I believe, sometimes a different level of sexuality and stuff. And so for bookstores and what have you, that becomes another question point on whether or not to purchase something sometimes, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I'm just like, it's not I can't do everything. So I'm like,
but it sounds like it's a great book trip. You go to visit the Ripped Bodice, you go run down the street, you go to the comic store, that's a great day for some of us.
Yeah.
You are on my location visit for when Historical Romance Retreat takes place next year in San Diego. So I figured I can go to LA And I'm supposed to go to do the ball for the Bridgerton in Chicago in April. So I will be visiting your store too, Joanne. 'Cause I said,
Everybody's,
Monique, I go, have you seen this? And she's like, what?
yeah, unfortunately, we're spending money.
Uh-huh.
There's a good one, and everybody's got a book like this. We do what we do here usually in Library Land, just keep putting it on display, keep putting it on display, keep putting it on display. What is a book you love, but you feel, and it doesn't have to be necessarily from this year, it can be an older title or an author, if you can't remember the title, that you don't feel that they're getting the respect and the notification that they really deserve. Roseann, you want to start with that one? I see you're sneaking a peek.
I know, I'm looking at my thing.
Me too.
Okay. So it's not just me. This one. Queer
Oh,
Princess
awesome.
Kit Web. Yes. It is
Cat
such a good book.
Sebastian.
Cat Sebastian. I still hand sell it all the time. And there was a lot of buzz about it, but things were moving so fast this summer that I think that's something that kind of didn't get the buzz that it should have got. What else? Another one that I really liked from this summer. Here we go.
There you go.
Yep.
And this got a lot of buzz and still does, even though we're saying not a lot of buzz because of the whole Schitt's Creek thing. So,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
I
yeah,
could not
so-
keep that in the store to save
Yes.
my life.
Either.
Mhm.
And then for a while, you couldn't even order it because it was out of print.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Wow.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, that's good to know. Well, I'll double check our lists. Leah, what about you guys?
There's an author I love, named, I don't know how to say her last name, Cara Bastone or Bastone. And yeah, I was just, my customers did not seem that interested in it. And I was like, it's really good. She wrote this, series set in New York. It's contemporary, just sort of like normal people. I think almost it like what wasn't exciting enough sounding for people. But I just thought the writing was great. And it had really, really interesting characters, and she's quite young. She's at the beginning of her career. So yeah, I don't know. I think I do think cover might have impacted that one. It had a cover that it was perfectly fine, but it felt maybe a little old to me. Like it didn't feel super like fresh or modern. So I am hoping they give her whatever she does next a little bit of a better treatment.
Bigger push.
Yeah, because I thought the book was great.
Well, and I think part of the problem with that book is there was a dog on the front cover. So you think it's going to be this innocent romance.
Cutesy book.
And
Mhm.
yeah, and it was not.
Yes, I
So
agree,
it had a
Roseann.
high heat level, so-
Right. I think
Yeah,
it
I think the
it
marketing.
looked like almost, again, there's like nothing wrong with Debbie Mackimer, but it sort of looked like a Debbie Mackimer or something just for an older audience or by an older author. I don't know how old she is, but she looks like she's like 30. So yes, I agree. I don't think they marketed it correctly.
What about
Yeah.
you, Edna?
Well,
Is there something under the radar that you wish had more oomph?
for me, in our area, I would have thought, I really thought that like Heather Graham, because there was a lot of people who like the paranormal. I have a lot of her cruise books haven't moved. The last couple of them have moved because I also bought them for the event, which they did sell because she was going to be the named speaker. But I didn't see the Forbidden move as much as I saw her other titles move. And I thought that was kind of strange because she usually, when her books come out, people come up and see it. And I look at the covers and there's nothing wrong. So I don't know, it's because they were all here at the same time. Everybody was trying to think like, what happened here? They went either to the unknown or to the Taken, which was the last one in the series. And that one's just right there in the middle and nothing, because for a change, everything in our area moved. But the ones that were moving really well, like Tessa Bailey, Julie Murphy, that we had on our tables for the summer read or the people you meet on vacation type things, those all do well. And they're still doing well because we have them on this table. But I just thought Heather, who, I've met, who I've read for the longest time, even when she was super romance for Harlequin, before she started going in
She's got a lot of fans. She's got a long
Yes.
career. Yeah.
So
That
I
they
was
didn't come out for it.
I was kind of shocked for that because everybody else seems to be doing really well, and historical people were willing to try new authors that they hadn't tried before. So that was for someone who, she's got one who lives, Stephen Anselo. He's blind, but he listens to all her audiobooks, or even if he has to go through the Kindle auto app. He was like, yeah, he goes, I crossed over that one. So I was just like, okay, Stephen, why?
That's
He's
interesting.
one I could get an answer from. And he was just like, I don't know.
Sometimes everybody has an off book. We've all seen the authors that do that. I noticed just what you were saying, that certain people weren't buying certain authors at a book fair. I always find it very interesting to be a fly on the wall and think, oh, my library gets that. I'll save that purchase for the library versus trying someone new at an event like that. So that tells you the importance of us having the mainstays, so to speak, but also trying new authors as well. I know with everybody's budgets and stuff, it's a balancing act, as it always is. We're going into Romancelandia's future. Where do you see things going as far as diversity? We kind of touched on it a little bit before. Do you think it's better? Or do we just read about it more? Slowly but surely? What are your opinions on it? I'm going to start with Leah.
I don't think you want to start with me, to be honest. I mean, you can, but
I think we might be on the same page on that, Leah, because I'm gonna say this. I have Latin authors in my store, and I can't get people to read them. And I'm just like, what's the problem? They're writing contemporary, we're writing our culture, but it's the same thing as everything else. Why can't you read? Like, I know Priscilla Olivares, I'm going to use her as my example. I have her books in the store. And yeah, I've gotten people to buy them because I've shoved them on the table, and everybody's like, well, I go, no, we're putting it on the table. Don't argue with me. So we can get a presence. But I don't see a big turnaround for like Hispanic authors like I do for everybody else. But I also don't see that a lot with some of my African-American writers unless it's a popular book. Beverly Jenkins, everybody buys Beverly. I get asked a lot for like Brenda Jackson, but because she does a lot of the monthly ones, you know how that one goes. But I'm like, why can't I have a bigger section for this? We used to get asked for urban writers, and we would have to tell them, oh, they're mixed in. When I worked at B. Dalton, we had an area that was all urban writers. We had our Black romance authors. We had our Hispanic romance authors. And we had our customer base who would come in. They knew where they were. They knew, we would call them, hey, remember release day is so-and-so on so-and-so's book. Do you want me to put it aside for you? And they'd be like, yes. And do you have this, and this? So we would do that. But they say that the market's going to get better. Honestly, it hasn't gotten as better as we thought it was going to be.
And definitely not as fast, I think, as people thought it would.
And the implosion of RWA, you thought things would have gotten better. I don't see an improvement. I'm sorry. That's just me.
No. Roseann?
it's not just you.
No, I don't think it's just you.
It's not just you.
Not just you at all.
I would definitely go with slowly but surely, but sometimes it's kind of pulling teeth, hook them in. Come on now, publishers. I get that sometimes it takes 2 years from the beginning of the book till it's released, but it's a slow moving process, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, I think, we have, it sounds like not the same problem as Edna has, which is that we have absolutely no trouble getting people to read them. We don't have enough books to sell them. My problem is not with the customers, it's with the publishers, as anyone who's ever met me knows. Yeah, we can sell it. I will say, Edna, I really agree with your experience that for some reason Latinx authors are getting the worst end of the stick. It's not, we're not pitting anybody against anyone, but you're not crazy. It's definitely my experience as well. I do think it's our personal philosophy talking to people in the store that we do not have a separate section for non-white authors. It doesn't seem like that's what our customers want. The term that we've heard from people is that feels like ghettoization. So we don't do that. And it's an interesting, and I've talked about this with a lot of people because we do have a separate LGBTQ section. So I think that it's something I, continue to think about and continue to evolve my thinking on and try to listen to customers about what they want. And I've sort of landed where we are now, which is that people do want that separate section, but don't want, a non-white author section. In my opinion, it is 92% a publisher problem. And yeah, there's various things everybody else can do, but the burden is largely on publishers, and they're just not.
No, it doesn't seem to be moving as fast as I think people have wanted. One of these years, I will be greatly surprised if I see more than one Hanukkah book come out for Christmas time during the winter. And I'm just like, this is the one Hanukkah book
this year.
I think there's like 2 or 3 this year.
It's slowly getting better, but to me, that's the ultimate example of it in our area.
We've been selling a lot of copies of Holly Jolly Diwali, which people are into. We have that. What's matzo ball?
Matzo ball.
Yes,
matzo ball.
Yes.
Those 2 are our best selling ones right now. We haven't really gotten into the Christmas ones yet. But yeah, and it's just it just goes beyond. It goes beyond race. It goes beyond sexuality. It goes beyond religion. Disability is so far behind everything. I think we have one book in the store that has somebody in a wheelchair on the cover. It's a novella by Alyssa Cole. Somebody's gonna have to Google the name for me. But so yeah, it's just
it's where I think I'm hoping we're at the beginning of this push. Slowly but surely, enough people demand it. Like you said,
thank
the
you,
YA
Christy,
writers
for
are already
Googling
writing it. Yeah,
and I just want to shout out
keeps going.
one more time, if you're looking for things, Women of Color and Romance is a great resource. There are a lot of young bloggers and book talkers who are out there really doing a good job highlighting those books. LGBTQ Reads is also a great, they have the most helpful thing ever. They have like a romance tab, and it's broken down by trope. Like you could literally look up like gay Christmas books. It's very helpful.
Yes, I had a coworker offer that up to me, and I said, "Oh my God, this is fabulous!" Because if you want gay science fiction, boom. If you want this,
super
boom.
helpful.
Very well done. Very well
really
done.
A great website.
Very well done. Yeah. Some of the questions that have come in have been similar to what we been talking about, and we kind of touched on it a little bit with Colleen Hoover because she was promoted kind of like this for her first couple books. Somebody is asking, is Happy for Now popular? Especially in teen. I mean, most teen books end up Happy for Now, so we'll kind of take them out of the equation. But out of the other ones, everyone was new adult books was the term 4 or 5 years ago, if not more. Do you find that is popular? There's a couple of 3-part series that have that keep people stringing along, maybe.
Yeah.
That shows my bias. I'm sorry.
No, it's
by the end
okay.
of the
I
book.
agree with you. I would say yes if it's clear. So it doesn't bother me. Yeah, YA, fine. They shouldn't get married at the end of a YA novel. They don't have to get married they don't have to get married at the end of any book, but you know, like the whatever kind of settled we're going to be. I recently read a book, which I will not name because I don't want to shade the author, but I didn't know that it was going to be one of two. So it needs to say book one, or, you know, Sea of Love, the duology, or whatever. Like it needs to be clear. And then I got to the end and I was like, ah! And then I looked it up and saw that there was going to be a sequel. So, as long as it's clear, I don't have a problem with it.
When it's not clear,
then I have a problem with it. Especially because the literal expectation in our store is everything except for that table over there, which is like the regular fiction section, is a romance novel. And the definition of a romance novel is a happily ever after. Now, happily ever after does not mean we're married with babies.
Yes.
But it does mean we're alive and we're together.
Yeah.
I liked your term for it, settled. I really do.
Yes,
I think
great.
that's a really good term for
Right,
it.
because
I'm
that
gonna
can
have
be
to start
whatever.
using that one.
Like, you know, we're moving in together, we adopted a dog, whatever. Like, you don't, it doesn't have to be marriage and babies, but you have to be alive and settled.
Right.
Settled.
Yeah.
I like that. Happily, but happily ever after settled doesn't sound
Happily ever settled.
Right.
doesn't sound as good. Yeah, no. So you said you do a lot. Do you guys do a lot of print on demand? We have more, probably libraries have probably less experience with it, except for a couple of our vendors. And it sounds like you guys have a lot more of that leeway, especially if you're getting the books directly from the author.
Yeah, I've actually never looked it up. I should. I would estimate that between 30 and 40% of our store is print on demand books. And it's interesting. I think it was something I didn't know that much about before I, started doing this.
It's totally evolved in the past with the technology in the past so many years.
And, to me, it was, especially when we opened, I mean, I know it's only been 6 years, but that's a lot of time in publishing, as we've talked about, so many of the queer and authors of color have been kept out of traditional publishing that they turn to self-publishing. So basically it's like, if you're gonna carry those books, like this is the way to get them. We actually don't almost never get them directly from the authors just because it takes a lot of time to organize. So, we order them from Ingram. The reason many people do not is that they're frequently almost 100% of the time non-returnable.
Non-returnables.
Yeah.
Which is kind of a pain. However, we have a workaround for that. And it's called Blind Date with a Book. And it's
we do that in library land, but this is the first time I've heard it as used in this kind of terminology.
It's our most popular thing. We literally cannot make enough of them. My booksellers spend hours every week. And the great thing is that if something doesn't sell and we can't return it, we just turn it into a blind date. So I'm not worried about things not being returnable because I have a backup plan, which is to turn it into a blind date.
That's awesome.
It is my dream. I actually want to get one of those machines for the store, and then we could like print books on demand for people. But they literally cost like
they're gorgeous,
$1,000 or something like that.
They are gorgeous now, and it looks like the last time I saw one was in Las Vegas, one of the independent bookstores there, and they had it in the back, and it was with a Romantic Times event that they hosted there, and they literally printed off a short story for us while we were there. If you guys have Book Expo has them sometimes, usually they do. And I think LA has had them as well. The American Library Association conference has had them as well. If you ever get a chance to see it in person, I saw one at a Book Expo ages ago, and it was this huge, long conveyor belt of something. And now it's gotten down to the point where it literally, we thought it was the copier, in the back office. That's how compact it was at that point. And
want
that
one.
was at least 3 or 4 years ago. So I'm only
Um,
imagining that it's even getting more even tabletop version. Yeah, it's pretty fabulous. And I think the as you guys know, just the whole concept of, having a writer write a short story for your store, print it right there, a special edition kind of thing. That would be just so cool.
Yeah.
Book geeks, hello. I'm trying to think what else, and I think, where do you think romance is going? Do you think it's going to grow? Do you think Bridgerton has given historicals the push that it needed? With all its, I always try to tell people, I'm like, it's not exactly like the, show. But I'm always glad to see that romance is getting attention in whichever format it can. Where do you see things going? What's your prediction? And we won't hold you to it. But where do you think things are going? Or the other question is, if you can't answer that one, the other question is, what book next year are you really looking forward to? Or what new author are you looking forward to that you can't wait for? I'm going to be evil and start with Roseann. Hope your audio might
Was
be
I
out.
muted? Am I
There you go.
better now?
There you go.
Okay.
You're fine.
I must have muted on accident because the dog started barking. Let's see. Eva Lee has a new one coming out in February, The Good Girl's Guide to Rakes. I'm looking forward to that. So she's starting a new historical series. And then the sequel to It Happened One Summer, Hook, Line, and Sinker by Tessa Bailey. I'm looking forward to that. So yeah, one of each. Yep.
Okay, Leah.
Where are we going? I don't know. I'm one time I went to a conference of like trend predictors and I forgot where I was and I said I don't believe in trends. So that didn't go over that well. I literally like forgot where I was. I don't know. It's just it's impossible to predict. Who knows?
You're
if
just
there's
trying
gonna
to
be-
make it through the pandemic. damn it.
Exactly. I was like, I don't know if there's going to be another global pandemic. Yeah, I don't know. I know not to end on a bad note, I know where I don't want it to go, which is that I think a lot of publishers are pushing romance authors into more women's fiction territory, which I don't like that term, but so I would like to not do that. But things I'm looking forward to. I'm looking at my list of things I've already read. Alexandria Bellfleur has a really great series that's been really popular in book 3, and that is coming out. It's called Count Your Lucky Stars. They're all astrology themed, which is fun. And there's a sequel to Neon Gods, which I mentioned earlier by Katie Robert, called Electric Idol.
For those who haven't heard of that book, and if you're a Greek mythology geek, highly recommend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With the caveat that they take a lot of liberties.
Oh no, it's not Edith Hamilton by any means.
No, but and is there anything else that I haven't mentioned yet? I think that's it. But yeah, I mean, I hope we're going, where I always want us to go, which is just better, more inclusive, better, pay authors more, treat authors better. Only good things.
Only good things. Edna, what are you looking forward to in 2022? I'm sorry, it still sounds really weird saying that.
I'm looking forward to Jenna McGregor's, the second in her series of the one for,
I love how we all have our books just hanging out.
I don't have any props. I feel like I should have more props.
Well, I have a table, hold on.
I'm at my house, not the store, so I don't have my props here.
My house, but I still have all the stuff from the event that are on a table, so I could read. I'm looking forward to the second one in the series that comes out in March for Jenna McGregor. What do I think Bridgerton did? It brought in people to read romance. I know I was not a fan, because Monique knows this, about 50 Shades of Grey, but I will say that I sold, as my friend Deborah said, they want it, I'm going to put the book in their hand. Did I read it? No, but we're going to put the book in their hand. I had a lot of coworkers who never read romance, but read it because they started reading it because of that.
They wanted to know. Yeah, the book trend of the moment. It always seems to go whatever. And that's why I that's one of the reasons I love Netflix, and I get worried about Netflix and actually they're not the only ones. We've all heard the latest media outlets that are buying up book series left and right because now there's just such a big demand for content, as we all know. And so I'm pleased that romance is becoming a part of that, at least. So yeah. Anything else anybody wants to say? We are getting to the end of our time. We have had a delightful conversation. I cannot say how much, ladies, to thank you for being here and taking time out of your busy day and your workplaces and dogs aside, and what have you, and everything else you're doing with your life right now. I appreciate you taking the time to talk to us about romance, talk to us about the romance industry. Librarians have a lot of similarities with this, and a lot of librarians are scared of romance. And I just hope people come away with this with not being so tentative with it and just to explore it more. I think that might be it. Anything anybody wants to promote for their store real quick? Besides the fact that go to your independents, go to your local bookstores. They're not going to be there if you don't go there.
Definitely come find us in cyberspace. We're on everything. But also, feel free to email us, me or presumably any of these other lovely people. But we share lists all the time with, bookstores who are looking to start a romance section or have questions. So feel free to email me.
Summer bingo.
Bingo. Very fun.
Always very fun.
If you need bookish gifts for the people in your life, we have a whole holiday shop. So check that out. And please come say hi if you're ever in Los Angeles.
Roseann?
Oh, very nice. That was good, Leah.
Thank you.
Yeah, we have holiday boxes and then some other stuff in the store. We focus on fair trade and then women-owned companies for our sidelines. And yeah, or all over social media as well. And we would love to see you in the store. Absolutely. Email us with questions. That's perfect.
Road trip. Edna?
Yes.
I'm doing blind boxes that all have new books, and the blind box, there are two prices. One is $15, the other one is $26. And the reason the other one is $26 is it's a bigger box and it's a priority mailbox. So
which can be important this year.
Yes. And so it's $26 because I only charge $7 for shipping. But if we're doing priority, the other $9 come out of that. So I'll be doing that, and they'll include hardcovers, trade,
nice
mass
mix.
market. Yeah, and it won't be anything used. It'll all be new. Although my premise is used and new right now.
And what website should we go for this?
For Edna's Emporium. Edna's Emporium, yeah.
Okay, great. And Jennifer is going to close us out.
Actually, before I close this out, we have one question from a attendee asking if the panelists can recommend some newer authors who are writing romantic suspense.
Oh. We talked a little bit about it because we all know authors start somewhere in the romance scheme and then they move around. What about romantic suspense?
That's a good question.
We might have to get back to that person.
It's a good question. I feel like there honestly aren't that many. It's like mainly people who've been doing it for a long time. Give me a second. There's somebody I want to look up, but I'm blanking on her name. Hold on.
I think a lot of it's being taken by the psychological thriller stuff sometimes.
Yeah.
Without the romance element, usually, obviously.
Well, CC
Meg
Hunter
Tilly
also.
has a few ones. Go ahead.
Yeah, Meg Tilly. She's got some great ones.
Meg is so nice.
Yes, she is. CC Hunter, she writes under, that's her team, but she also has one under Christy Craig, and that is suspense romance.
Okay. Adriana Anders is a good one for suspense.
Oh, I really like that one too, Roseann. Yeah, they're
Mhm,
like
mhm.
they get stuck in like Antarctica and Alaska,
Yes,
and
yes.
those are
White
really
Out and
good.
all those.
Cool,
Yeah,
fun
those are good
things.
ones.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Oh,
that's a good
awesome.
one.
Awesome. I'm going to have to investigate that because I've noticed that, like you said, there's authors who've been doing it for quite a while, but there's not as
Yeah,
much.
there aren't that
fresh stuff.
many new ones. I can't think of the one I was thinking of, so
We'll work on that.
I'll put
We'll
on
work on
Twitter or
that.
something.
We'll work on that, getting you a list. Yeah, great. Anything else, Jennifer?
No, thank you all. It is 4 o'clock, so we will let you go. And just a reminder to everyone that this will be available as a recording, and we'll make a book list of the authors and books mentioned, and that will all be on artreads.org. Thank you all.
Thank you,
Thank
everybody, for
you.
coming. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay.